On the last Friday of every month, I'm posting a quick roundup of my favourite exciting, interesting and generally positive news about D&D and TTRPGs from the last 30 days. Many other channels do a really good job of comprehensively covering the latest Wizards of the Coast scandals and D&D drama, so I wanted to fill a gap in the market by highlighting some of the positive, fun news that's got me feeling hyped up about the tabletop hobby. So without further ado, here is all of the D&D and TTRPG news from November that made me say, nice. The original creator of the Forgotten Realms is a gentleman called Ed Greenwood. Long before Forgotten Realms became the most popular D&D campaign setting, it was just Greenwood's own game world. Which is why I'm really excited about this next piece of news. You see, Greenwood has just announced that he's partnered with a publishing company called Mythmakers, and they're going to be putting out a series of totally new sourcebooks for the Forgotten Realms. I think this starts in spring 2026, and the idea seems to be to flesh out the campaign setting in the kind of detail that the mainline D&D books have never really attempted, with one relatively small region covered in depth every year. For example, the 4 books that we're going to be getting throughout 2026 all focus on the Dalelands, a relatively small region of the continent of Faerûn. In order, throughout 26, we're getting a setting guide, a resource that's going to focus on taverns and NPCs, there's going to be a book of dungeons, and then finally a collection of adventures for players, I believe up to level 12. I'm always going to be excited about cool third-party D&D content, but when it's coming from the guy who essentially created the world of D&D as we know it, I am even happier to get on board. Greenwood has said so far that they plan to publish via Dungeon Masters Guild, the website, but right now there's no information that I've seen to confirm if these are going to be digital or physical or both. Hopefully both. Now, speaking of the Forgotten Realms and Faerûn, WotC have dropped 2 new hardcover books in November. One is called Adventures in Faerûn and the other is Heroes of Faerûn. Adventures is intended for DMs predominantly, and it comes with a bunch of pre-written adventures for various levels, villains, maps, and then Heroes is a collection of player options, lore information about the world, details of factions and gods that the characters might be involved with. As usual, they've received mixed to good-ish reviews online, but the reason I bring these books up is that this is, as far as I'm aware, something we didn't really see in 5e, the separation of player and DM focused materials for a specific location. For example, take a book like Mythic Odysseys of Theros, the kind of Greek campaign setting. That's got a bunch of player options and systems for the DM in there, plus all the materials for the wider world, and it's all mashed into one. Now obviously, WotC are probably doing this because they want to make some more money, but personally I kind of enjoy this approach, at least from the DM side for campaigns. My dream scenario for a pre-written campaign setting is to get one whole book that is just for me as DM, packed with secret lore, quest hooks, adventures, systems for the DM to use, and then separate from that I can hand my players a book or a PDF with not just player options, but information about the world that their character is likely to know. I don't expect they'll do this for every campaign setting, Faerûn's kind of a special case, but I'm into it as an underlying design philosophy, whatever their motivations might be. Also, staying with the Forgotten Realms just a moment longer, we got this month confirmation that the D&D show is still apparently happening over at Netflix, spearheaded by Sean Levy. It's called The Forgotten Realms. I think that might have just been announced recently, and it sounds like it's still happening. It's still in the writing and pre-production stage, but it is still happening. I rewatched the D&D movie quite recently, and it's so much fun. It really holds up. So a long-running series, more in the style of a long-running campaign, would be delightful, but obviously we are a long way off. I'm just pleased to know that it's still in the works, at least. One show that is very much not getting cancelled anytime soon is the Mighty Nein over on Amazon. As you definitely already know, this is Critical Role's second campaign, brought to life in the same animation and design style as their first Amazon show, The Legend of Vox Machina. Mighty Nein has been debuting with a perfect Rotten Tomatoes score over the last couple of weeks, and it has just been enormously well received across the board. But that perfect Rotten Tomatoes score is particularly cool because it has given media outlets a reason to talk about D&D and about the show specifically, even if fantasy cartoons and TTRPGs aren't really their normal focus. I'm obviously very excited to sit down and binge through this. I've not watched it yet, but I was always a really big fan of Campaign 2, probably more so than Campaign 1, because that was my first experience of a Critical Role campaign. Critical Role have been on a roll, if you don't mind me saying, over the last year. Unprecedented levels of success with their TTRPG system, Daggerheart, which became kind of a sensation over summer. It was sold out everywhere. And speaking of which, I thought it was worth mentioning the news that over the last month, the Dungeon Dudes have launched a Kickstarter. It's to produce their Dungeons of Drakkenheim campaign setting, or their campaign setting guide. And it's already fully funded, which is great, but what I think is more newsworthy is the fact that what they're funding is a conversion of their old campaign guide from D&D to Daggerheart. I think in the long term, one sign that Daggerheart has really earned its legacy within the community will be things like this: third-party publishers and creators producing and converting their books over to the system. My guess is we'll see a lot more of this going forward, especially after how successful this one was. Finally, for our main news section, Inkarnate, the map-making website, has announced the release of their Inkarnate 2.0 update that's going to be coming out December 8th this year. Inkarnate is the map-making software that I've been using for a very long time. It plays an essential role on this channel and in all of my Patreon pieces, and I really do think it's probably the best map maker out there, at least for D&D content. 2.0 is a huge update to the system that's been in the works for, I think, maybe 2 years, and it seems that it's going to be coming with stacks of new assets, quality of life improvements, new filters, the ability to create and save custom stamps using multiple Inkarnate assets, all great stuff. But for me, what I'm really hoping for is just a bit of stability. The last few months, the site has been having all sorts of crashes and problems, and I think that's partly due to the work they're doing behind the scenes, and I'm optimistic that a lot of the bugs that I've been experiencing will be crushed out with Inkarnate 2.0, and at the very least their new autosave feature means that when those bugs pop up, it's a little less frustrating. I love Inkarnate. It has been a godsend for me and my players, and for all the people who subscribe to my Patreon. And it's just cool to see that it's still being developed and updated and cared for. So, December 8th, I'm personally very excited about. Now, to wrap up, I want to quickly highlight 2 crowdfunding campaigns that I noticed over the last month, and which, at the time of posting, still have a few weeks left on them. I'm not in any way associated with these campaigns or these companies, I just think they're really neat. The first is Mort, over on Kickstarter. This is a system and a game setting built on the Mortborg mechanics, and this draws its inspiration from the folklore, the history of Mallorca and the islands that surround it in the Mediterranean. It seems like quite a dark fantasy world, but it's enlivened with little dashes of surreal humour. The land has been overrun by humanoid pigs known as porks, and a pig called King Pork is ruling as a tyrant. I've been following the guys who are behind this for ages on Instagram, mainly because I absolutely love the project and the artwork. The artwork throughout this piece is very openly inspired by, among others, Mike Mignola, my all-time favourite artist for comics and the creator of Hellboy. The monsters and the character designs are really interesting, very varied and witchy and occult. And since it's developed from the Mortborg underlying engine, it's pretty easy to learn and play. As I post this, they have about 20 days left on their campaign, so there's still time to jump over and support them if that sounds like something you're interested in. The other project that I want to mention is Twilight Sword. This is a campaign setting that runs on a new D12 system, But the key thing to know about it is that it's clearly Zelda. Now, it's not actually a Zelda TTRPG, it's legally distinct, but it's called Twilight Sword and it looks like this. They're funding this one over on BackerKit, and I have to admit, I have a real soft spot for this kind of project. Increasingly, people are making TTRPGs that distill all the core components of a recognized IP. Aesthetics, the mood, the places and the names, they all kind of sound familiar, but it's become something that is in the spirit of the original source material, while also being new and fresh. Some other examples of this would be Steinhardt's Guide to the Eldritch Hunt by Monkey DM, which is very clearly inspired by Bloodborne in a really good way, and Obejima, which is the campaign setting drawn from Studio Ghibli movies. You end up with something that feels like a familiar world or a game you love, but it's also completely fresh and full of its own unique elements and identity. And Twilight Sword seems to be the perfect example of this kind of thing. Another big plus for this project in my book is that it's being created by a small Italian game studio, but it's being published by Free League, the guys who put out the Dragonbane game and the One Ring. So I'm expecting a pretty beautiful, polished final product here, based on the previous releases. Again, they've got about 20 days left on this campaign. That's all for now, folks. Next week I'll be back with my usual D&D content. This kind of news roundup thing is just going to be a last Friday of the month kind of thing, as I said. But I like the idea of basically ending each month on a high with a bunch of reasons to get excited about the hobby and about the industry as a whole. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next Friday.